Hey, what's going on guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another video on F1 2018, the game, bringing you some more info from my hands-on at E3 2018. I already made one video earlier today on all about the handling, the ERS system, and the AI improvements, so if you did miss that video earlier today on the channel, be sure to check that one out before you see this one. But in this one, you can see by the title, we're going to be talking about the press and interviews. Yes, they are back, kind of, I think after like a couple of days of the make headlines motto that they launched the game with, it was kind of maybe obvious that the interviews were coming back, but like I've stated, if they were going to bring them back, they need to bring them back in a much better way. And they certainly have done for F1 2018. It's a really, really cool system. Time-pressured interviews that actually matter and that are going to directly impact what you can do in your career as a whole. Not just one season, but it could determine your entire career mode long-term in terms of what you're saying in these press interviews. And it plays a big part of the game overall because they've got a lot of new cutscenes. So straight away on the hands-on, when we launched career mode, Lee talked us through. Straight away got given like a whole new cutscene where we kind of sat down with our PR agent still from the last game, but then also a new character is introduced. Her name's Claire, and throughout the entire career mode, she'll be the motorsport journalist, essentially, that you're interacting with the entire time for your press questions. And throughout the entire thing, you'll maybe seeing her popping up in like cutscenes and whatnot. A little note on the cutscenes, even from this early on, because the game's by no means polished at this stage of its kind of cycle as we build up to its release at the end of August. The cutscenes straight away I could already tell were a lot better than last year's. Like the actual graphic fidelity of the cutscenes was stepped up even more since F1 2017, which is always tricky for the F1 game to do. But Lee mentioned they have a new art director at Cody's now, so I could definitely see the impact of that work from the new art director. Definitely the cutscenes looked a little bit more embellished and just even at this stage a lot more polished than they were last year. But yeah, I mentioned that first new cutscene, so it's kind of in this new area of the paddock where you kind of sit down at this small little coffee table with your agent and the journalist, and then when the time pressured questions come up, that's another new location in the paddock by the weighbridge. So obviously if you're familiar with Formula 1, as I hope you guys are when if you're watching the video, obviously the weighbridge is that area where the drivers weigh in after qualifying and the race. They've got that long kind of table like structure on the floor where the car can be put on all four wheels to get the weight of the car, but then also the drivers do that thing where they stand on one of the tire weight sensors and they kind of read the times on the little desk ahead. So essentially that's in the background, in the background of the shot, and in the foreground is Claire asking these time pressure questions. And so a little circle comes up that's got like 11 seconds, the bar starts to drain out, so you're definitely pressured to try and answer. And there's actually 5 different answers in the little question I was given on my hands on there. It was just after the first practice session, so Claire asking me a question about how that session went. 5 different answers you can go with there, so a lot of choices actually. I mean, they weren't like short answers actually, they're actually quite long, so definitely is going to be a bit of a kind of scramble in the mind. Like, you can't just chill out and kind of take your time to answer the questions, and it's going to be important what you answer those questions with, because depending on what you answer, that will improve either your sportsmanship or your showmanship. Now, your sportsmanship and your showmanship, those two different things, are very important, because in the main career mode game menus now is a slider between sportsmanship and showmanship, and that's going to really impact how your career goes, for your reputation, how your own team kind of perceives you and how other teams perceive you. I'll get more into kind of how that plays into other game mechanics in a future video, because that's a really big its own feature in itself. But basically, just know there's a slider that goes from sportsmanship to showmanship, and that gets affected directly by your press interview. So it's a very important thing. In the example that we played through on the hands-on, the kind of question was how the session went. How do you think the first season's going to go? And one of the kind of example answers was kind of, in 50 years time, people are going to remember my rookie season. Very arrogant answer, and that boosts your showmanship. And so the more you kind of go towards one, the more Claire might ask you questions that actually divvy up and set up you to answer more answers in a more kind of flashy manner if you're going for showmanship, or in a more kind of humble manner, a bit more reserved like a sportsmanship. So Lee gave the example of obviously Fernando Alonso. He's so good now that he's kind of earned the right to be quite arrogant sometimes, a little bit arsey in a way with his answers from time to time. Whereas let's take the youngster Charles Leclerc, the man he's been flying in the Canadian Grand Prix, Monaco, Spain. It's his first year in Formula 1. Clearly he's a very humble, nice, down to earth guy, and every time he answers questions, it's very reserved, very sportsmanship-like, and so that's what they've now got in the game, this system of how the paddock, your team, how you're just perceived. Are you going to be a flashy, arrogant driver? Are you going to be a reserved, kind of more kind of penned in, I'm going to stick to the script media kind of stuff? And it's up to you if you want to answer the way you truly want to, or you want to think about how you want to be perceived in these questions. So unlike F1 2010, 2011, where it was just a simple kind of, you know, after 2-3 questions, there was really no point answering them because they didn't really affect anything in the game. It was purely there for aesthetics and a bit of a throwaway mechanic. Now, there's no way you can ignore these answers. Like, you have to actually answer them and actually think about what you're answering. Otherwise, you could seriously screw up your career as a whole in terms of down the line in future seasons. It may really affect what you do in terms of moving to other teams. That's a little hint at kind of a new feature and system in the game, which I'll get to in a different video. But just know that the interviews are back, and they're really, really, really good. Just that's all I can really say. They did, you know, exactly what I said earlier. They brought it back, but brought it back in a much better way. Like, it actually makes a difference. And finally, the final part into this, and this plays more into the actual, more the showmanship and the sportsmanship, not the interview part, but when you first select your team on the game for career mode, you'll be given what each team looks for. So a team like Mercedes, at the moment, it might change for the full release, but in this build, Mercedes were looking for sportsmanship, kind of, that's their main perk that they enjoyed. Red Bull loved showmanship, obviously, as you kind of imagine. Red Bull love their aggressive drivers, i.e. Ricciardo and Verstappen, and kind of makes sense for Mercedes. Mercedes have all been very reserved, you know, signing Bottas, you know, 2 seasons ago, kind of makes sense there. So they've gone through and given different perks for the teams, essentially, and what they want from you. So it's a question of, do you want to do your own thing, like I said, or do you want to actually gel with your own team? Do you want to give answers that your team's going to enjoy, or are you going to go against the grain? Maybe there's going to be another team that you want to try and press. That's kind of another hint at the next kind of mechanic there. But I really want to just make this video about the interview stage, because I know a lot of people are just going to want to know about the interview feature just by itself alone. So just know that. So really in depth, new locations in the paddock that were confirmed with the cutscenes as well. I guess since I talked about adding new people in like Claire, I may as well also mention, because it kind of makes more sense to fit it into this video, there's also a new another new person added into the game, so that's great as well. Another new location as well. So there's now like a data center location where it's kind of almost in the team hut per se. We kind of got like a team hut kind of thing last year in 2017 when you had that kind of area where the engineer sometimes gave you bad news for the upgrades. This is now kind of like a media center hut where you've got like a whole long kind of desk with your laptop now in it, so that's where you can also access the kind of main screen for the career mode. And then we've got a new guy called Carl, so he's your kind of data center man, and he's going to be the one to talk to about contracts, R&D, car setup, and so that's going to be the new kind of way they do it. So we've got 3 new locations, at least that's what I got from the hands-on. There might be even more locations, but that was something that we were hoping for as well, in terms of just a more expanded paddock, because in 2017 I'm pretty sure there was only, I think, about 3 different locations. You had the main kind of reception area, you had that kind of back area with the engineers, and then I think that was pretty much it, actually. I think you had like a little bit of variation from track to track, but that was pretty much the only areas of the paddock you got to see. So now they've added in at least 3 different new locations on top of, I'm assuming, those 2 other ones potentially, or maybe they've switched around the where your engineer resides. But like I said from the very beginning, like, this isn't, you know, finished. It wasn't a finished product, but I could already tell, like, just it was so much more visually a lot better than 2017. So props to them for like stepping that up, because sometimes they haven't honestly done a great job at stepping up in the past, from like 2016 to 2017 here and there, but they definitely have made a step up. And like I said, that new art director's definitely come in clutch to kind of help them out. But that's going to be it from this interview video. I want to keep this just to the interview feature, because, you know, I know people are just going to click on it for the interview, so I want to kind of just not stray off topic. As I said, there are a few hints to a new feature in the game that I'll get to in a different video coming up pretty damn soon on the channel. So if you're new around here, do get subscribed for that. If you did enjoy this video and enjoy the info, hit that like button, let me know what you thought in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.